Happy Friday! On Fridays, we go live at Wild Birds Unlimited in Joliet to tell you what's new, what's happening in the store, what's happening outside in nature. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight, I should say. It's so odd because being our first day since the daylight savings, it's so weird being here when it's still light out on Friday Live. So it's kind of cool. So that's happening. Time change is different. But we have a couple other things that we're going to talk about today. We are going to focus heavily on preparing for attracting Orioles. And the reason why I would have done this a little bit later in the month, but you know, the Orioles seem to have their own agenda and are arriving a little bit sooner. At least they're trickling in a little bit sooner. So I figured it might be a good time to focus in on Orioles right here, right now. So that's a big part of what we're going to talk about today is our Orioles and how you can attract them and what things that they're going to be looking for when they're coming into your yard. So that's the big one. But we are also going to talk about, I read an interesting article this morning on the Great Backyard Bird Count and some statistics. And I think I want to share that very first because I think it's pretty amazing the accomplishments that happened during the Great Backyard Bird Count this year. What exactly was what happened and what we got out of that. Well, first off, if any of you don't know what the Great Backyard Bird Count was, is in February there is a 4-day count that is put out by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, and one of their many counts, right? There's a couple of them, Project Feeder Watch, the Big Day, there's quite a few of them. Backyard Bird Count is one of those citizen science projects where we are asked to watch the birds that we see in our own backyards or out in nature and report that data to Cornell in a couple different ways. One is eBird and the other is Merlin, right? But I thought it was really incredible that over 8,000, and specifically 8,078 species of birds were ID'd during the Great Backyard Bird Count this year, which is pretty incredible considering it's more than 158 more species this year than we had reported last year. So that's pretty incredible that not only did people participate in this activity, but we actually reported more species this year. And I think it's important to mention that 217 countries participated. So it's not just the U.S., right? It's not just Will County. It's not just Illinois. It's not just United States. It's a global count, which is pretty incredible. And I just want to point out that 387,652 eBird checklists were reported with, and let me just say, 611,066 Merlin IDs were reported, which is pretty darn incredible. So the U.S. alone contributed to 170 species of that 8,000, which is pretty incredible. Big U.S. count happened, right? But Merlin ID usage is up over 108% from last year at the same time, which is absolutely awesome. So not only did we see more species, more people participated, which means that more data was collected. And I want to just put out this one last thing that was, I thought, pretty awesome, is that the most frequent birds ID'd in the U.S. were the northern cardinal, the dark-eyed junco, and the house finch. And I swear I thought it was going to be starling on that list, but believe it or not, it was not the starling. The top 3 birds were the cardinal, the junco, and the house finch. So if you did not participate in the Great Backyard Bird Count this year, I'm going to highly recommend that you try to participate next year. You know, over 409 community events around the Great Backyard Bird Count happened during that 4-day event, and our store was one of them, which is pretty awesome, and we do plan to do that again next year. So stay tuned for more information on next year's Great Backyard Bird Count. They already have the date. The date is going to be the 13th through the 16th of 2026. So stay tuned, more info to come on that. All right, real quick, I want to show you some new products that have come in. Some of them are food, and some of them are not. And I thought we would start off first with some of the non-food related items that have come in. One of those things is new GBBU earrings. So if you aren't familiar with our GBBU earring line, these are pretty amazing earrings. Not only are they, I just grabbed a couple to show. One is an Oriole, since I thought it was pretty fitting since our topic tonight. The other one is the hummingbird, and I love the little hummingbirds. And also, I brought out a wood duck, since wood ducks have been a topic here at the store today. I thought that was pretty cool. But GBBU earrings, what makes them so special? Well, a couple things. First and foremost, what I absolutely love about GBBU earrings is that they're made out of post-consumer cereal boxes. So one of the best way to see that in action is sometimes on the back of these packagings, checks, right? But one of these I thought had one of them had a Cheerio on it, which I think is pretty awesome. So not only is the packaging, but also the earrings themselves are made out of post-consumer cereal boxes. So not only are they sustainable, but you're also doing a pretty good, cool way to promote your favorite birds or favorite wild nature items. We have a couple different styles, from butterflies, all sorts of insects, some mammals, some birds, all sorts of ones. But the other thing that I think is pretty awesome about wood ducks, or GBBU, I should say, not just wood ducks, is that if you can tell, even with that other hummingbird one, the pair is not the same, right? The earrings are not the same. And the idea behind these earrings is that you wear them and they're going to be different and interesting, and people are going to ask you, oh, those are interesting earrings. You know, they're not the same set, right? It's not two male Orioles. It's a male and a female. And it kind of lets you share your knowledge a little bit about these creatures, the birds, something interesting about conservation that they could need help with potentially. Wood ducks, in fact, need a specific house. And what I love about wood ducks, and I'm going to share a really cool video maybe tomorrow, is how wood duck babies leave their nest. And if you didn't know, wood ducks actually use a nest box. They're one of the few that do, right? And they're up into a tree using a nest box or a tree cavity. And then when they're young or ready to fledge, yes, they hop out of that box or out of that tree cavity and they bounce to the ground. They're often not right next to water, but sometimes they are, sometimes they're not, but they're just so cool. And I thought it was pretty interesting that we in fact do have wood ducks. So if you're looking for a specific type of bird or a specific insect like a monarch or something like that, come in. If we don't see it on the display, ask us, because we have a whole box full that we can look in for you, okay? The second thing that came in, which is pretty fun, is that we have more Spinfinity twirlers have come in. And if you didn't know what a Spinfinity spinner was, it's one of these guys. So this one is hooked up to our hooked up to a mechanism that actually turns it, and we do have a couple of these in store for sale. But I love a couple of these styles, and I brought you over a few. This one moves. Isn't that so cool? Like, look at it when it spins. You see it moving? The hummingbird is flying. I just love that. We have them in a couple different sizes, small and large. The small sets come with a beautiful little tail here. The large ones don't come with a tail, but you can add one on, and I'll show you a couple that we have. One is this one. I have a patriotic one coming up for either 4th of July, or if you know someone that's maybe in the military or in a police department or something, or they just love patriotic stuff, this is right up their alley. It is an eagle, and you can see it flying. That flag is also waving, but check it out with the little tail that it has going on here. It is stunning. I love all the colors that it has. This style only comes in large. I don't have it in small. But I also have another large one here that was really, really popular as a small style. And this year we got it in as a large style. And that is, in fact, the monarch butterfly. This coloration is pretty awesome. It has purple and green and a little bit of yellow, or maybe orange, if you will. But this, look at this tail. It's the purple, and I love it. And yes, this one also is moving. That image moves down there, and the butterfly does fly. But check that out too. Just love the colors on that. I can tell this is going to be a hot, popular item for Mother's Day. So come in and grab them early before they get sold out, all right? All right, on to the new food item that is in. And it's not necessarily new because we have had it before. But it is returning for the season, which I am so excited for, and that is Nesting Blend. Nesting Blend is back in stock. It is here in the store, and it is available online. If you're asking yourself, why Nesting Blend? Well, Nesting Blend is perfect for this time of year because birds are starting to prepare for nesting season. That means that they are going to be busy, 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 and they're going to need extra things in their diet to help with nesting season and all the duties that it comes with. So in here, the majority of let me read off the ingredients. I'll just read them off, right? We have sunflower chips, peanuts, mealworms, bark butter bits, safflower, which is actually Nutri-Safflower, by the way, in here. Similar to Winter Blend, right? And then there is also tree nuts and calcium in here. So what we know about Nesting Blend and what birds need in nesting season, right? Nesting Blend is the highest protein, calcium blend on the market. Well, why do they need protein and calcium? Well, a couple things. A lot of birds are going to be having young soon. And they need calcium in their diet for two reasons. Adults, especially the females, need calcium in the diet to help with egg production. Okay, but the other thing that they need is that protein. The protein is not only going to help them grow up, the babies grow and have a very nutritious diet, but after they fledge, right? That's what you're going to be offering. But the adults benefit from it too. So with all the things nesting entails, right? They have to find a mate, get a territory, build a nest, lay eggs, rear young. It's a very high intensive time of year, and birds need as much protein in their diet as possible so that they can complete all those tasks. That's why Nesting Blend is so, so important. And again, just like your Winter Blend, I will either offer it in a couple different ways. So I can offer it loose on its own. I can offer it mixed in with seed I'm already using. Or, like me this time of year, now that Nesting Blend is in, I'm actually mixing it with Winter SuperBlend. And I'm going to show you Winter SuperBlend in a minute because I have a special promo going on just right now in store and online for Winter SuperBlend. But I do like to mix Winter Blend right this time of year when we can get both of them together still. Sometimes we sell out of Winter Blend too quickly and we don't get the opportunity to offer both of them at one time. So take advantage of it while the opportunity is here. Grab your Nesting Blend, grab a Winter Blend, mix it together, and literally make the best concoction of seed blend you can. It's pretty amazing. The birds absolutely go crazy for it. But of course, if you're not a loose seed person or you don't have as many feeders for extra seed blends like that, there's always that option to offer Nesting Blend in a cylinder form. Nesting Blend does not come in the 2 sizes though for cylinders. Nesting Blend only comes in a small size for cylinders and the loose bag. Okay. Now Winter SuperBlend, right? We do have it still in a large cylinder. I just didn't bring it over here for the live. But this stuff is still here. We still have a couple bags and a couple cylinders here. But what's happening right now is anything that's left, starting now, in store and online, you can save 20% off of that on all your purchases of Winter Blend. Okay? And you don't have to put in a promo code online. You just put the items in your cart and it should automatically come off. All right? So take advantage of it while it's still here. It won't stick around forever. Winter SuperBlend is usually only seasonal and we can only get it for a little bit while longer. But since the Nesting Blend is now out, we are kind of phasing this stuff out. So what we have left here is what we have left for the season. And it won't be coming back until later when we get closer to fall. Okay? So start it up. Help those birds out. You know, the other one that will really take advantage of Nesting SuperBlend is our goldfinches. Because goldfinches are going through their spring molt. Like some of our other birds don't do 2 molts in a year, but goldfinches do. So they're starting to turn gold, and they're going to need a lot more protein in their diet. And guess what has a ton of protein? That's right, that's right. So make sure that you put out the high proteins, high calcium foods to help the birds out as they start preparing for the beginning of nesting season. All right. Talk about that. Let's put that back down. Get rid of some of this stuff. All right. Talked about the new stuff. Talked about Winter Blend. The last thing I want to get to before we talk about Orioles real quick is some of our events this weekend, tomorrow at 11 o'clock. I'm talking about wellness benefits of birds. It's going to speak all about how watching birds and being in nature is going to help you physically and mentally and all of that. It's good for our heart health and mental health and emotional health. So stop in and check that out if you're able to. Wrapping up the end of the month, we have on the 29th at 11 o'clock, we have Who Haven, a new wildlife rehabilitator that it's the first time they're coming into our store. But if you have ever been to Pelican Watch or Eagle Watch over at Four Rivers, Who Haven has brought all those birds. And on the 29th, when they are here, we are hopeful that they're going to be bringing a snowy owl. And possibly one, well, we know another bird, but it's going to be a mystery bird. And then a couple other critters, or creatures, I should say, that will be joining them. That is free to all. You just show up at the store, enjoy the meet and greet kind of thing. But at the very end of the month, I want to say it's the last day of the month, it's the 30th, we have an in-store presentation called Creating a Pollinator Paradise. We're hosting it, but it's presented by Kelsey Shaw from the Possibility Place Nursery. He's one of the co-owners. So he's going to talk to us all about how to create a pollinator paradise right in your own yard. Okay, so stop in for that. That presentation, I don't have the time on here, but I want to say it was 1 o'clock. And just give us a call in the store to let us know that you're coming so that we can have enough seats available for everyone. Okay? Thank you so much for that. All right. Let's get to it. The main event. The main thing that we're talking about today is attracting Orioles. Now, this information that I'm talking about is actually all on our website. I printed off the pages from our website just so I didn't miss anything. I wanted to make sure that we were hitting on all the things I wanted to talk about on how to attract cardinals to your yard this season. Hey, Valerie, thanks for joining us. So, remember last week when I told you we don't expect Orioles to be in our area until, like the end of March, beginning of April? Well, the Orioles had a different agenda. And some Orioles, in fact, there has been already one sighting in Will County in Romeoville of a Baltimore Oriole. All right. The other thing is eBird also has a couple sightings further north of us, meaning Wisconsin. So what does that mean? What does that tell us? Well, that means that they're doing their own thing. They're making up their own rules this year. And just like last year, in fact, even though we always tell you guys, if you want Orioles, it's your first time getting them, put it out early, meaning put it out at the end of March so that when they come in early April, we're prepared. Well, just like last year, they came early. And if you weren't prepared and you didn't have your stuff ready, meaning you didn't have the feeders out and all that, the food going, you might have missed them. Okay? And this is why. Okay? The spring migration is the best time to try to attract Orioles, especially if it's your first time. And the reason is that we're getting a big movement, and we see many, many Orioles coming through our area. Now, while many of them will be passing through, and we see them for about a couple weeks in the beginning of spring, some of us will not see them until the end of this nesting season, and they're returning back for fall migration. A couple lucky of us get to see them all summer long because a few Orioles will stay local here and will find nesting sites locally. Now, does that mean that everyone is going to have a habitat willing, able for Orioles to stay and nest in? No. Okay, that's the honest answer, is that not everyone's backyard is going to be the preferred habitat, right? Orioles prefer to be somewhat near water. Now, it doesn't mean that they have to nest right next to water or right on the waterfront, right? It just means that there needs to be some kind of waterway or a pond or a lake somewhat in the vicinity. Okay, they are big insectivores, and their young eat a ton of insects, especially before they leave the nest. So that means that areas, also like wooded areas or grassland areas, are going to be excellent habitats too. So it doesn't necessarily mean that if you're not by water, you're not going to be able to attract Orioles. Not true. Okay, just because you might not have the habitat to host them for nesting doesn't mean you can't attract them as they're passing through. That's why spring migration, with the big numbers that are moving up, are going to be the best time to attract them. Now, if you're saying, you're hearing me and you're thinking, oh no, the Orioles are already here, I'm too late. Well, those ones that are just starting to be spotted are likely scouts. So these are adult males that are likely returning back to breeding grounds from the past year. We still have other young, like the young from last year, that will be breeding for their first year this year, and we have females that are coming up. These are two excellent times to try to attract them to your yard. Okay, and there's a couple ways that we can try to attract them by offering water, food, and places to raise young. Let's talk a little bit about food, okay? Let's talk about food. Now, food to offer Orioles. Jelly. Oranges, right? Oranges like the one that I have skewered on here. Mealworms are a thing, right? I have some dried mealworms here. And then I have my nectar up here. These are all high-priced items that the Orioles absolutely love and are looking for when they're passing through in your area. Okay? A couple things about mealworms is you can offer it in its own dish, something like this. I love to offer it in sometimes dishes like this, right? This is another perfect Oriole feeder. This one here I have this one too at home. I like it because it's not only a cup feeder, but you can skewer oranges on these little skewers here. But I can put my jelly in here. But if I'm not using it for jelly, I often use it for mealworms, or I use it for bark butter bits. So it's not a just jelly inclusive feeder. I use this all year round and put different things in it. Even maybe a little cup of Winter Blend or Nesting SuperBlend and put that in my little cup feeder too. So this is a great option. It's a low cost way to start Oriole feeding. Okay. If you want something a little bit more substantial, or you could perhaps do something like this. We also have a step down from this feeder, but essentially this one comes with 2 cups here. They're wrapped up, but 2 cups here for jelly or mealworms, right? You could also skewer fruit on these pegs, which is a nice way. I like that it also has cover on it. And I did tell you I have a smaller version of this that only has 1 cup with room to skewer fruit also, and it is covered. So this is a great feeder also to use for Orioles. We have this feeder here at the store. We use this one. It's a good feeder. The other one I love is my personal favorite, is the WBU Oriole feeder. And the reason why I love it so much is not only because you can offer the jelly in these little wells here, but you can skewer the orange on this the hanger part, right? You actually pull it out, and the tip of it is actually a skewer. I'll show you. Almost out. Here we go. Check it out. That skewer edge, see? It is, in fact, a skewer, so you can skewer your orange perfectly on here. I like to use, just an orange, but I've also used clementines. I've used, anything kind of citrusy. They love that kind of citrus fruit. That's what they're dining on when they're overwintering in South America, so it's a good option to put out there. But the other thing that this feeder does is you can offer nectar. And yes, Orioles drink the same nectar that your hummingbirds drink. So if you are making it with your sugar and water 1-to-4 ratio, you could do that here. If you're using our mixed bags, whether it's the stuff with the regular canister or the red bag has the Nectar Defender in it, you can use either or. Fun fact too is because this Oriole feeder has the ports that are big enough, your Oriole and your hummingbird can use this feeder at the same time. So it's kind of cool. It has that built-in ant moat where you put in water right here so that the ants can't get to the sweet substance. And these feeders also come with nectar guards to keep the bees away from being able to drink out of your nectar. So these go on the very bottoms under here. They're going to cap these little caps, pull off of here. These they feel like rubber. I'm sure they're silicone. But then they cap underneath here so that the bees can't get into the nectar. So love this feeder. It's one of my favorites. I use this one up north in Wisconsin. I put it out day 1 and I got my Oriole 30 minutes later. Not to say that it's going to happen for everyone, but hey, the important thing is just because the Orioles are starting to come in and not the whole group. Why do we want to put out our feeder right now? Couple things. If you're new and you're trying to attract them, the sooner you have your Oriole feeder out with the foods that they're looking for, the more chances, the longer chance you have to attract Orioles. Okay? Number 2 is Orioles that are coming up this early are kind of playing a risky game. We know how March is in Chicagoland. One day we're in high 70s, almost 80-degree weather, and the next day we're back in the 30s. It can be a tricky time for these birds. They're coming up banking that the weather is good enough and they're going to get a head start on territory selection for nesting, and when their mates come, that they will have things started, right? That's what these birds are banking on. They don't have a weather app to tell them, oh wow, Chicago is going to have 70-degree weather next week. Maybe I should start heading up. They don't have the weather app. So it's all innate in them, telling them, their internal clock is telling them when it's time to come up. So as these birds come up, and we know how our weather can be, there may not be as many food resources this early as it would be if they waited a couple weeks. So your food being put out there early is not going to harm it at all. It's not going to harm the birds. It's not going to entice more to come up earlier. They don't have a camera telling them, hey, Ellen's got her feeder out there already. We should head out since she has the food out. They don't have that. They don't have walkie-talkies. So they're going to come up and they're hoping that they're going to find resources along the way. And you can help them out, any of those early arrivals, by putting out food so that they can find some nourishment until insects start really ramping up. All right? The plus side to offering food out early, besides the potential fact that you might get Orioles sooner than later, is that other birds will take advantage of the sweet treats that you're going to provide, okay? Birds like house finches love jelly, but also woodpeckers and many other birds. Catbirds will soon be up here, likely in May. They love jelly too. So it's not a bad thing to put out jelly early, okay? Put out the Oriole food early. The thing that you want to remember is that we want to keep it fresh. So until we start getting more and more sightings and we start to see more dots on the maps that Orioles are coming into our area, my recommendation is only put out a little jelly at a time. Only put out a half or a quarter of an orange. Only put out a small bit of nectar until we start seeing more activity on the maps, okay? I, of course, will keep an update, so I'll keep you informed, letting you know when is when to start really ramping it up with the food, okay? Some tips I will say, and we'll give you some other tips, because of course birds need water. These birds, you know, they just like every bird needs to stay hydrated, but they need water to help maintain their feathers. Many of these birds just flew thousands of miles to come up here, so they're going to need water to maintain those feathers. So make sure that you have a bird bath that's clean and maintained so that they're providing extra water for those spring migrant visitors that are starting to arrive. The other thing to consider is nesting, right? And we know Orioles do not nest in nest boxes or birdhouses, right? Orioles make this incredibly intricate hanging basket. If you've never seen one, I really recommend you Google Oriole nest right now, and you will see how intricate and amazing this nest box or this nest that they create, how it looks, and that they created all themselves by weaving in individual fibers from plants to create this. It's absolutely mind-blowing that birds can do that. But what we can do is provide natural nesting material for them, and we can also plant trees that are native to our area that will maybe eventually become habitat for Orioles. The other thing we know native plants do is, especially native trees, because many of our native trees are actually keystone species, meaning that they support the most other wildlife. Okay, they are keystone species. Native plants support native insects. And guess who eats native insects? Almost all of our migratory bird species. So if you really want to help your birds in your backyard, not only the ones that are going to be visiting us, but the ones all year round, like our chickadees, plant native plants, plant native trees. It's going to be the best thing you can do for them. All right, here are some top tips, my 4 best tips for attracting Orioles this year. Okay, got your paper and pencil ready? All right, here they are. The most important thing to consider when you're putting out your feeder early is that you want to put it out early. Okay, if you put it out after they're already starting to come through our area, it's a little too late. You may have a chance still, but your chances dramatically slow down and single out if you don't have it out beforehand. Okay? Orioles, number 2, Orioles fly very high and hang out in the very tops of trees. So we want to make sure that not only that feeder is out early, so when they're passing through they can see it, but just that, they need to be able to see it. Most birds find their food by sight. So we want to make sure that we are going to put our Oriole feeder out in the open in your yard. Okay, get a advanced pole system, move your shepherd's hook, put it in the middle of your yard so that the birds can find it. If you put your Oriole feeder underneath a tree, underneath those low hanging bottom branches, it's going to be very tricky for your Oriole that's hanging out in tops of the trees, flying very high over, to see your feeder and know that your dinner plate is open for them. So make sure that you're putting that open sign on, and that you're telling the birds that dinner is served by putting it out in the open. The third and equally as important thing to remember when attracting Orioles is to make a lot of orange noise. I say that quite frequently when we talk about Orioles and when we talk about red noise for hummingbirds. And the idea is that you are putting a lot of the color that they are attracted to the most out in the yard. So, for example, this dome here is orange. And if you have more orange domes for other feeders, even if they aren't Oriole feeders, adding orange domes, adding orange ribbon to your pole, adding orange color, planting orange flowers, all those things are going to signal to those Orioles that you are really trying to attract them. Okay, so make a lot of orange noise, put it out in the middle of your yard, and put it out early. Okay, those are my top 3 recommendations that are most important when we're trying to attract Orioles. The fourth and last one that I'm going to give you about attracting Orioles, the most important things to consider, is being patient. And it's the hardest one for me because I truly am really excited to get these birds back, just like I know many of you are. But it's important to keep patient because we're just starting to tiptoe into the season of Orioles, all right? It's important to keep an eye on those maps, but it's also important to stay with it and keep with it, because sometimes it can take a couple of seasons to get Orioles, of trying and putting it out there. Sometimes you may not get them on that first couple days, maybe it's a couple of weeks into the season. An Oriole hanging around the area finds your feeder. Okay, it's important to keep up with it because once those babies leave the nest, the parents will bring them to feeders like these. Okay, they're going to bring them to the feeders to show them what feeder food is all about. And that is so, so cool. But it's important to keep being patient and keep up with maintaining the jelly, maintaining the nectar, your fruit, keeping it fresh. Okay, so the more that you keep it out there and the more frequently that food is fresh and the more frequently you have that feeder available for them to find, the better chances you're going to have to attract these birds. Okay, so be patient, make sure you're putting out a lot of orange noise, get that feeder out in the open, and put them out early. Like I said, it's not going to hurt anything. One thing I see real quick too that I forgot to mention is that this piece right here, take it down real quick because I want to show you how cool this is. Probably going to lose my cups, but I want to show you how cool this pole system piece is. I have this piece, I love it. So you saw how easy it attaches to our pole system. But this piece right here is just the coolest. I have this. I absolutely love this piece. Not only does it act as a perch? So if your birds are hanging out, you know, just like people, we like to eat together with our friends and family. So do your birds. So if they can line up and wait their turn for a spot at the feeder, they will do so and they'll hang together. But this particular branch has a couple cool features. First of all, they have a couple of these cup holders, like so, to put either maybe jelly or maybe mealworms or maybe bark butter bits or maybe nesting super blend, right? Quite a few options to use these for. I've even spread the spreadable bark butter into these cups. The birds just love it. It's like ice cream in little cups for the birds. Love, love, love that. Now these things, these leaves, are actually kind of concaved to be able to hold an orange slice, like a half an orange. So you can put that in there. The nice thing too is that if you have light feeders, like little cup feeders or nice little hummingbird feeders, this attachment works well to hang those additional nectar and jelly and fruit feeders in little small feeders from, right? They'll hang right from this branch. Really, really cool. If you've never tried one before, it's a great addition to your pole system. All right. Let me know in the comments, do any of you have any questions about Orioles? What is something that's burning in your mind that you want to know? Here to answer those questions for you. I thought it was really cool too. I didn't realize I had all these fun facts on our website about Orioles, but one fun fact about our Oriole is that they are actually in the family that's related to blackbirds. So while we've been hating on our blackbirds all this time, bet you didn't know that the Oriole was in fact a family member, a kind of distant cousin, right? In fact, they are. So how cool is that? You take the bowl with them. Yeah, I know. I wish the squirrels would learn to leave it alone. I do if I'm having an issue where a squirrel can get onto a pole system, I try to put a lot of hot pepper foods in here. So in my cups, if I'm using bark butter, I will put hot bark butter in it for the first time. And then hopefully after then, they kind of learn that this isn't going to be an option for them. So hopefully that kind of helps a little bit. But yes, I kind of agree that sometimes the squirrels need to learn to take the food but leave the feeder, please. Right? Tell them that. Yep, exactly. So that's about it today. I think we're pretty good. If you have any questions, of course, you can leave them in the comments and I'll come back, either tonight or over the weekend to answer those questions for you. I thought I would also share this cool feeder. This cool feeder is designed for mealworms, but it's designed to keep certain birds like your blackbirds or starlings out from it. So in this feeder, right, it's kind of similar to other feeders that we have. The top part comes off, and in here is a cup. And in the cup you can put mealworms or high-priced food items that you're trying to limit who eats, right? Anyone that can't fit in the hole they're not going to be able to get it. So some of your larger birds, like your blackbirds, who would happily eat up mealworms for you, they're not going to be able to access this feeder. So this is a great way to offer mealworms or your bark butter bits where some of those other critters aren't going to be able to access it. Oh, wonderful, Valerie. Sounds like you have a whole yard full of birds. Is it starting to get a lot louder with all the sounds outside? This today was incredible because every time I went outside, not only was there so much bird noise, but with the wind, it was just almost overwhelming to be outside in a good way. Overwhelming in a good way, right? All right, guys. You have a wonderful weekend. Hopefully we'll see you at some point this weekend, either in store or if you put an order in online. Don't forget 20% off of all of our nesting SuperBlend while supplies last. And of course, don't forget we've got a nesting blend now, so it's back in stock. So excited for that. And of course, if you guys do happen to see or hear your Orioles in our area, please send it to me either in a message on Facebook or put it on our Facebook page or write me an email. I'd love to make sure that we're sharing all these cool sightings of birds that we're so excited to get back. We absolutely would love to, one, share your sighting, but also share it with the community so that they can also prepare and hopefully they can get some Orioles to their yard too. All right, you guys have a great weekend. We'll see you next Friday. As always, if you have any topics or questions that you would like me to talk about for next Friday, leave them in the comments or send me a message. We'd love to chat about things that you guys want to hear about. All right, have a great weekend. We'll see you. Bye now.